From his chill demeanor to his signature look, Bob Ross remains an icon to this day, inspiring board games, contributing to many a hilarious meme, and last-minute Halloween costumes. But did you know Bob Ross wasn't always a low-key, go-with-the-flow type of bro?
There lives a happy little evergreen tree.
Today we're exploring the enigma that is Bob Ross. But before we do, how about you leave us some happy tree comments and subscribe to the Weird History channel. All right, let's take a look at some fluffy little clouds. Bob Ross did not have naturally curly hair. Yeah, that's right. Bursting your bubble right there at the top of this piece. That famous silhouette was not born from a desire to serve looks along with his painting lessons, but rather because Bob Ross was broke. As anybody who lives in Los Angeles can tell you, the first thing to go when your budget needs tightening is personal grooming. Bob figured he could save money on hair maintenance by cutting his own hair just the one time and perming the life out of it. Better to utilize his cheddar on things like squirrel food, denim shirts, or hot tea with lemon. Unfortunately for Bob, he hated this cost-effective look. Bob wanted desperately to get rid of the perm and change his hair back to its natural vanilla ice-esque flat top, but he'd inadvertently created a signature look that his corporate overlords were insistent on keeping. It was in the logo after all, and you can't very well change a logo. For his uniform, Bob wanted to maintain a timeless look, which by his definition meant button-down shirts and blue jeans, a look that remains popular to this day with retired TV talk show hosts and famous pop star couples alike. Ahead of the curve as always, our Bob. But Bob was used to maintaining strict uniform and hair standards since our boy was in the military for 20 years. That's right. Sweet and mild-mannered Bob Ross was a commanding and authoritative sergeant in the United States Air Force for 20 years. Before he picked up a paintbrush, he picked up his bags and settled into the Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska, surrounded by the most well-adjusted of trees and mountain ranges that would go on to influence a great deal of his art. As a sergeant in the Air Force, Bob wasn't a soft-spoken, gentle man. It may surprise you to learn he was a bit of a hard-nosed boss, often demanding the cleanest of toilets and the most made of beds of his Air Force fellow compadres.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the number.
Of his time in the military, Ross had this to say. I was the guy who made you scrub the taurine, the guy who made you make your bed, the guy who screams at you for being late to work. The job requires you to be a mean, tough person, and I was fed up with it. I promised myself if I ever got away from it, it wasn't going to be that way anymore. Bob, of course, followed through on this promise and seemingly never raised his voice above a mild whisper as soon as he retired in 1981. He spent his downtime at the airbase painting the rich landscape surrounding the base that he'd sell as a way to make extra income. Was Bob Ross always poor? We're lucky as a society that the trees in Alaska appeared to be good vibes only, or else we may never have known what a happy tree was. After Bob retired from the military in 1981, he did what most retirees do and moved back to Florida. What a cliche. It was here that Bob started to study his infamous wet-on-wet painting technique under the watchful eye of teacher and mentor Bill Alexander.
I hand over now that almighty brush to almighty man, and that is Bob Ross. Congratulate you.
Thank you very much, Bill.
But just like Kanye West in reality, their relationship soon got real dicey. Season 2 of FX's Feud would love to get their hands on the great painting show on public television drama of the 80s because, boy, there was drama. You see, before there was Bob's show, The Joy of Painting, the arts and crafts TV space was occupied solely by The Magic of Painting, hosted by Bill Alexander, also on PBS. The two developed a rivalry after Bob Ross's Joy of Painting became a smash hit, while most of us have never heard of Bill Alexander and his magic of oil painting.
I like to find like this.
While Alexander's show was popular, it wasn't nearly as popular as Ross's and didn't have the monetary value of Ross's program despite being basically the same thing.
Maybe here 4 wise, 1 happy little birch tree.
Alexander said he felt betrayed by Ross. Ross, ever the nice dude, declined to comment about his former mentor because now he is a major competitor. Such a sweetheart. Alex even went as far back as to claim to have invented wet-on-wet, despite it being attributed in art as far back as the 15th century, including to a semi-famous artist you might have heard of called Claude Monet. The Joy of Painting stayed on public television airwaves for a jaw-dropping 31 seasons. Because of this, Bob Ross painted a ton of paintings. For every show, he made 3 copies of all his work. The one that was actually painted on the air, a copy for reference he kept on the ground nearby whilst painting, and finally, another that was completed after shooting that would appear in his how-to books. Oh, did you not think Bob Ross was an empire? Because he was kind of an empire. between the show, his art supplies, and his art courses. In fact, like the magic of painting, the joy of painting was mainly a space for Bob to sell his art supplies.
Liquid white is a thin oil base coat.
He was even a traveling salesman for Alex's paint supplies before being discovered by a woman named Annette Kowalski, who attended one of his lessons and thought he should be doing this solo. She's basically the Yoko Ono of PBS. She also put her money where her mouth was, however, investing all of her life savings into Bob Ross's career. I guess we can emphatically say that was a good bet, Annette. However, it's a good thing Bob Ross Inc. was a multi-million-dollar company because Bob Ross was a glorified volunteer for PBS who did not pay him for hosting his wildly popular television show. Ross instead used this platform to sell the Ross-branded paint supplies and painting classes taught by artists trained in his signature wet-on-wet method, almost as if he did this simply for the joy of painting. Ross did more than donate his time for the joy of painting. He also donated his paintings from the joy of painting. Ross would donate his completed paintings to PBS stations across the country, who in turn would sell them to make a hefty buck or two, never profiting personally from his own paintings and always spreading the wealth. How is this man not knighted? I mean, honestly. How much wealth? Well, nobody knows for sure. It's hard to say how much our humble Bob Ross created paintings are worth to this day. One of the most prolific painters of modern times, and his art has been priced at various amounts of cash throughout the years. Because he made 3 paintings a show times 31 seasons, it's estimated Bob painted 30,000 pieces of work before his death at age 52. 30,000 paintings are precisely one wall art section of IKEA. Previous auctions have set Ross pieces at $600 and $1,000 respectively. Those pieces didn't sell. Another piece of his work titled Northern Lights was set at $6,000 and also, sadly, did not sell. It's starting to make sense why Bob Ross always seemed to be cutting financial corners. With no public record of his sales, it's impossible to guess how much they might be worth. The answer is obviously priceless. One question we can answer without scrounging through records is how many happy trees our humble artist painted. According to the statistic-heavy website 538, who did an analysis of Bob's work, there were, and no surprise here, a ton of very happy trees.
I do love to paint trees.
91% of Ross's work contained at least one happy tree.
These little son of a guns hide in your brush and you just have to push them out.
A full breakdown of his work over the years on the joy of painting put trees at the top of his list, followed by clouds, mountains, grass, and lakes. Viewers noticed he rarely featured evidence of people in his artwork, with the exception of the occasional well-lit cabin or smoking chimney. Even then, that's an assumption that a family is enjoying a quiet night at home, enjoying a meal by the fire, and not, as I assume, a haunted cabin full of chilly ghosts. 90% of his audience didn't actually paint along with Bob. They skipped the opportunity to frantically gather the proper art supplies and colors to paint along with their hero Bob Ross, choosing instead to fall asleep. Kind of like how today we wouldn't actually bake along with the baking contests on the Great British Bake Off. Well, we do, and that's why our cabins are on fire. Most people were not amateur artists trying to learn from him in real time. They just wanted to sit back, relax, and kick it with a chill dude painting a serene lake or two. It was cathartic to many people and relaxing to hear Bob's soft-spoken mannerisms and positive outlook on life. The majority of our audience does not paint, has no desire to paint, will never paint. Ross told the Orlando Sentinel in 1990, they watch it strictly for entertainment value or for relaxation. We've gotten letters from people who say they sleep better when the show is on. They often received up to 200 fan letters a day, and many of them were to thank him for being the ambient in their lives they didn't know they needed. We all have letters to write to the creators of the final season of Game of Thrones now, don't we? Bob developed real human relationships with some of his more frequent letter writers, contacting fans to check in if they hadn't written in a while, and even sending paintings to fans whose stories touched him and inspired him. I mean, how amazing was this guy? Just don't ask Bill Alexander, who is dead, so never mind. Bob wasn't just a friend of the humans, though. He also was a huge advocate for the welfare of our furry friends, too. He kept animals in his shirt pockets while filming The Joy of Painting. Sure, but when I bring my cat in a bag to grocery shop, it's weird. Viewers especially got to know Peapod, an epileptic squirrel that, yes, the full name was Peapod the Pocket Squirrel, and yes, it lived in a basement while not being filmed. That squirrel would have made a killing on Twitch. Ross bottle-fed Peapod the Pocket Squirrel on the air, and it's a mystery as to why Pixar hasn't bought the life rights to Peapod because, man, that does sound adorable. Ross would also frequently bring his friend Diana Schaefer, affectionately referred to as the Bird Lady by Ross, because she would, well, bring him birds. Diana cared for rescue animals including Hoot the Owl, who also made an appearance on the show. Little Bob Ross also used to keep squirrels as a pet as a child, and if you ever tried to calmly approach a squirrel, you can imagine the stillness and chill demeanor it would take to gain a squirrel's trust. But that's not how he somehow lost a finger. Bob Ross was missing a part of his left index finger. Ross's dad was a carpenter, and he lost his finger in a woodworking accident as a kid while operating a saw. See? Bob Ross was a beast. You can be forgiven for never noticing this before, since Bob held the paint palette with his left hand that kept the missing index finger out of view. It would be impossible to see. Also, this just proves my theory that humans don't need index fingers. Bob Ross created tens of thousands of pieces of art we should treasure dearly. He created a whole persona of being a relaxed, artsy man with a beautiful craft he just wanted to share with the world. He just wanted people to be happy. He just wanted to spark joy so you wouldn't throw him away. We'll leave you with this quote that sums him up better than we can. I got a letter from somebody here a while back, and they said, "Bob, everything in your world seems to be happy. That's for sure. That's why I paint. It's because I can create the kind of world I want, and I can make this world as happy as I want it. Shoot, if you want bad stuff, watch the news."
With that, I'm going to wish you happy painting, and God bless, my friend. I'll see you next show.
What do you think? Do you like happy trees? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.